I have a saying, and I truly believe this: the longest relationship you'll have in your life is with your favorite sports team. Our games are scripted from doors open till doors close. 36 years ago, when we first came to town, most fans were fans of another team because we didn't exist. So our goal is to be everybody's second favorite team. We get about probably 10 times more viewers on a 9-minute YouTube clip of a recap of the game that will see the game watched. And that's one of those moments, like we talked about moments you won't forget, but like the building stands still when Michael Jordan showed up.
Welcome to Game Plan, a podcast where you're going to be meeting athletes, business owners, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders. I'm Kaio Philipe, and I'm going to be your host. What is your game plan?
On this week's episode, Michael Forde.
Michael Forde, welcome to Game Plan. How are you?
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Of course, a warm day in Orlando today, no?
Every day is a warm day in Orlando in the summer.
Every day is a warm day. How is this summer treating you so far?
It's been excellent. The NBA season stays busy all the way through to the finals, and then we have the draft, and then summer league, and then this time of year things get a little bit quiet for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then we'll come back middle of August. We announce our schedule for next season, so we'll be right back at it.
The next season kicks off on October?
Yeah, early October is preseason. We start report for training camp right around the middle of September, and then we'll be hosting home games shortly thereafter in October.
And there's so many things happening with the NBA right now, right? You have a new media deal, 75 billion media rights. You're going to be, the NBA is going to be on NBC again. You have Amazon as well. In that context, Magic is a case study. You've been there for 2 decades.
I have.
You've accomplished so much. How do you feel about that?
It's really I'm very grateful. It's a blessing to work for the organization. I've actually had 2 stints with the Magic. When I first moved to town, by background, I'm an exercise physiologist. So when I first came to town, I worked for the Magic. I worked for a third-party rehab company, but we did all the rehab and conditioning of the players back in 1989. So I was there for the very first game.
Well,
different role. I was behind the bench working with the players and had a great experience and kind of stayed in that business probably for about 10 or 15 years and various different things around the business of rehabilitation, sports, and things like that. And then had an opportunity to come back in 2004. As I tell people now, I couldn't have written up the career path that I've had. It's just been very opportunistic, and I've been very fortunate along the way.
So let's talk about that. So in 2004, you were back here in Orlando from Philly, right?
Originally from Philly, yes.
And what was your first role at Magic?
So once I started, I was doing the exercise physiology with a third party. But when I got hired on as a full-time employee, I worked in the corporate partnerships department. So I was just an account executive selling sponsorship deals.
How do you go from an account executive to the chief sales officer selling $1 billion in tickets, most likely over 20 years? How do you do that?
You hang around a long time. I was very, very fortunate that my work has been recognized and the opportunities that have been provided to me. I've always approached business and my relationship with the team through a long lens, not an immediate lens. Quick story, when I first started with the Magic, my first year, I was probably in my mid-30s. My first year I did about $15,000 in corporate partnership sales.
That was what year?
I would have been in 2004. So I had worked for 9 months, had one deal with a local billiards company for almost $15,000 and 2 pool tables that we used in the building.
Wow.
Fast forward, the next year I did almost $2 million worth of business. People are like, well, what changed? Nothing. Like, it was just time, right? You got to get yourself acclimated to the organization, to the community, meet a lot of people, and ultimately find opportunities to serve the needs of those clients.
When you were growing up in Philly, was there someone that inspired in basketball or in any sports that you would look up and say, or in business, right? You would think, okay, I want to be that person. I had a poster of that person on my wall.
Yeah, I'd say the 2 influences of my life growing up besides my family, one was Dr. J, Julius Erving. So he was right at that age. I was probably anywhere between 8 and 12 years old when Julius Erving came and played for the Philadelphia 76ers, and he was my boyhood hero. Loved Julius Erving. I was very fortunate as an adult to meet him, but you never forget that first impression of someone when you're at that age. And the second was a gentleman by the name of Pat Croce, who was in the rehab industry and really was maybe the godfather of sports medicine. So I was an athlete. I played soccer. I played soccer all the way through college. I got injured, and I got introduced to sports medicine as a patient, and ultimately chose that path as my original career.
And you go from a doctor to a business sports person or executive in the largest franchise in the world. What was the game plan for that? How did that happen?
I don't know that there was a game plan so much. I think, again, it was opportunistic. I was always around sports. My father owned a sporting goods business. My brother worked for Nike. My family was always active and in the sports community. So I always knew that I wanted to work in sports in some capacity. Probably when I was 12 years old, I thought I could play and become a professional athlete, but I quickly realized that
we all do, yeah.
5'11", who couldn't really shoot or dribble very well, I wasn't going to be a professional basketball player. But even when I got in the exercise physiology degree, it was always with the mindset of working with athletes. So I always aspired to be in that athletic field. And then opportunities that presented themselves for me to make a nice living.
We're obviously growing the corporation, bringing new corporate partnerships. When you look back, 2004 was a different world, right? In the NBA, in the Magic. How do you represent the NBA now that was very different from before?
So the knowledge around basketball has grown worldwide. I think the dream team that had Michael Jordan and the rest that played in the Olympics, the first time the Olympics allowed professional athletes to participate for the U.S., that really changed because I think they were such rock stars and people followed them. So the following of basketball really increased. And I'm a big believer that fans are developed at a very young age. So I think young kids started to watch and emulate people like that and started to play basketball in countries that didn't have basketball before. And similar to soccer, I think basketball is a sport that you just need a ball and a rim, right? You really don't need much else, right? You can go out there and practice on your own and do things on your own. And so I think it's really taken hold. And then ultimately, distribution of television in each of those markets. So the NBA is now distributed in 255 countries. And so the ability to watch the sport is able to capture the imagination of a young fan. And then that young fan, hopefully, at some point picks up a ball and wants to play. Right now, the NBA, about 25% of all players are not born in the United States. 25%. And I think either the last 4 or 5 MVPs of the league for the season are not born in the United States. They're international players.
And that makes you think, right? Because you had a very celebrity player. You still have, right, with LeBron, but it was kind of gods in the past, right? Mm-hmm. Kobe, obviously. And now, so it looks like they just want to go there, play ball, make their $50 million salaries.
Right.
They're not so much into the drama or to the Hollywood scene.
Yeah, I think it varies from player to player. I think certainly the international players, they approach the game and their experience differently. I think a lot of the American-born players, and you mentioned LeBron and many others, they're now building their own brands, right? So they go into it intentionally to control their brand, their image, and everything that goes along with it. I don't think that was the case in the past. One is that the dollars associated with what they're able to do off the court is significantly more than it ever was before.
With social media, for instance.
Social media. Well, you think about Michael Jordan, most people now grow up thinking about Jordan shoes, right? Well, that was not something that was normal in the past. Like, Dr. J, Julius Erving, when he played, he had to deal with Converse, Larry Bird, et cetera. But prior to that, you didn't have shoe deals. You didn't have sponsorship deals for athletes. And so I think players now recognize that their influence goes way beyond the court, whether it's through social media or other channels, and they build their own brands.
And how do you manage that as a club executive, as a big franchise executive? How do you manage their egos? Understand that they can make more money with a post, right? I mean, $300,000, $400,000 with just a post rather than scoring the field.
Yeah, I think one contributes to the other, right? Your on-court performance opens up those opportunities. If you're top-tier players, brands, sponsors, partners, much more interested in those brands. And I think the players that have good advice, they focus on building their on-court performance and abilities first, and the rest will come to them, right? It's the ones that are chasing those deals without necessarily driving the performance on the court. And then you see that career shelf life is a lot shorter.
It cannot be just about social media. It needs to be about scoring, right?
And it's got to be authentic, right? And I think players are very aware of that now. They try to be a voice of who they are and reflect about how they are and how they present themselves, and not necessarily cater to what the partner or the sponsor wants them to look like.
Through these 20 years of working at what it is Kia Center now, right? Correct. With the Magic, what is the thing that when you look back, it was a moment for you, it was an aha moment. They were like, I think this is it. That's where I want to stay my whole career. Because I'm sure there was a lot of opportunities for you
absolutely,
to go to other clubs, to other, other leagues, right?
I think there's a couple moments that stick in with me from a performance point of view. Certainly when we went to the finals and won the Eastern Conference Championship, I remember where I was when the celebration was occurring on the court, and I had my actually all three of my kids with me at that game, and they were able to get close proximity and see the players and the experience. So that certainly seared in my memory. I think the other one, there was a play where Hito Turkoglu tossed the ball to Dwight Howard with 0.2 seconds left in the game, and he slammed it in for the win. So there's a couple of those game moments. But I think the recurring moment that sticks with me all the time is opening night. I've had 20 opening nights. This will be my 21st opening night. As the franchise has evolved, we typically lay out a T-shirt, a welcoming to the season T-shirt. So the arena's kind of lit up. It's a brand new season. Hope brings eternal, like you're hopeful for a good season. I start every year with a note to my staff talking about, all the work we put in, and to make sure you take that time to enjoy that opening night experience. I always find myself finding a couple minutes of solitude to just find and just sit back and enjoy watching fans get excited about the start of the season.
So in Orlando, it's a place where you have the parks, you have the Interco Stadium, soccer. Soccer is growing a lot in America, especially in Florida. How do you manage to get people to go every week to the arena and putting up a show? You mentioned about the opening night, which is a show. You have 25,000 people, 15,000 people in the Kia Center.
18,000.
18,000 people. How do you manage to get such an awareness, interest into that place?
We only control what we can control. I can't control the 48 minutes on the court. You hope that the team is performances and all that. But what we can control is the experience. So our games are scripted from doors open till doors close. Second by second, minute by minute, whatever's on the PA, whatever the announcements are, whatever's going on the court, it's a scripted and choreographed show. The only part that's not scripted and choreographed is the actual team performance. So we position it as a night out, and it might be a night out to take business colleagues and celebrate success at business, or take a business prospect, or it might be a night out with the kids, or a date night with your wife, whatever it might be. That's what we're really selling, is the experience of that emotional connection. The winning certainly helps when the team is performing better. The interest around coming to see a team performing well is great. But we've been very fortunate, even with some of our down years on the court, we've been able to fill our building to full capacity around that fan interest.
And to think that the Magic has it's not a legacy franchise. There's like a big title or a global icon in the court, like you have with the Lakers. And it's still, you built an international business or international brand, right? That resonates to many countries out there. A question that I have, and I keep asking myself, and how do you build a narrative? You build an audience without the titles.
Right. I think, again, we're in a town that expects a high performance show. We're very fortunate that whether it's the Disney cast members that have part-time jobs, or people that aspire to be part of the Disney experience, want to be in the show business part of our job. So we have a lot of talent to work with here. I think we also really focus on capturing the interest of that young fan.
Right.
I have a saying, and I truly believe this: the longest relationship you'll have in your life is with your favorite sports team. Who's your favorite sports team?
My favorite sports team at this time
outside of Orlando City.
Orlando Magic.
Besides that, internationally, who would be your favorite team?
I would say I follow many sports.
So, like in soccer, Brazil would be your favorite.
I used to be Palmeiras. Then it's been a while.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What my point being is, most fans become a fan of a team
when they're young,
6, 7, 8 years old. Yeah. And they'll have that relationship for the rest of their life, right? The highs and lows, and certainly their passion will go up and down according to what's going on with the team, maybe what's going on in their life. But that relationship begins at a very early age, and it sticks with you. We're now in our second and almost third generation of fans. So 36 years ago, when we first came to town, most fans were fans of another team because we didn't exist. And as you know, Orlando's a transient market where people move in from other places. So they might have rooted for Philly or the New York Knicks or Chicago, depending on where they grew up. So our goal was to be everybody's second favorite team, right? They rooted for the Bulls, or they rooted for the Magic except for when the Bulls came to town, or rooted for the Magic except for when the Knicks came to town. Well, now we have a second generation of fans. So like my kids, they're all adults in their 30s. They grew up Magic fans. So their passion exceeds anything of that original generation. So I think we've been very fortunate to build that fan base where they grew up watching a team that they rooted for, and now they have a few dollars in their pockets and can reach into it and buy a T-shirt or buy a ticket.
And that's what's happening to Orlando City, to Orlando Pride. You have a new franchise in the city, and I, you've been in Orlando for over 20 years now. How much this city has changed, and how much is changing, and how much will change? Some say that's the next Dallas, that's the next Austin.
Sure.
You have Adam Silver, who used to be the commissioner of the NBA or CEO or however you want to name, and he mentioned something that NBA was not competing with other leagues. NBA was competing with Hollywood, with Netflix, with Blockbuster at the time. Who do you think in the industry, other than the NBA, is doing that well?
I think the NFL does it well. I think there's a unique aspect to some of the American sports, right? So when you look at football, you look at baseball, maybe to a lesser extent basketball, the sport itself has natural timeouts or breaks in the action that you have to fill that with entertainment, right? In comparison to football or soccer, you have 45 minutes of play, then you have a break, and you have 45 minutes of play. So I can remember we first played in London. There was this weird experience when we played because you'd have a couple minutes into the game, there'd be a timeout, and your mascot or someone would go on the court, and people are looking around like, what in the world is going on here, right? Because they're used to the constant action. So I think those sports tend to naturally provide an entertainment value. Football is just such a massive interest around football. The in-game experience is differently than the at-home experience. When you really look at the number of plays in a football game, there's a lot of downtime in football with the huddling and in between. But again, they fill that with a lot of entertainment and interest around the game itself.
Right. And you are in the same state as the Miami Heat.
We are.
And they have celebs, they have all the Miami fame.
Sure.
And how do you compete commercially with that?
So it's interesting. I think
because you get that question a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Right? I would say that our partnership on the sponsorship side tends to be stacked in really three rungs. There's local, so you have brands that are locally based and focus only on Central Florida. You have regional, which is where you get into the state of Florida. And then you have national partners like a Gatorade or a Kia or other partners like that. So we tier that accordingly. The national partners, they're going to select the teams that are most important for them based on demographics, based on markets. Kia is a great example. We're the top performing Kia market in the country by volume, by dealership. So this was an important market, and why naming rights for this.
Kia has another arena, no, in California?
They do. They have the Forum, which is a music arena. It used to be the old Great Western Forum, which is where the Lakers used to play before they moved over to Crypto.com. So getting back to your question about the Heat, I think we tend to compete more on the regional level, right? Where there are brands that are focused maybe on the state of Florida or Southern Florida. And sometimes it's an either or, sometimes it's a both, or sometimes just the demographics align differently for them versus us. And so I think we're very good friends with them, and we work in coordination with them.
What is the difference from their audience and your audience?
I would say
the demographics.
Right? Yeah, I would say it's a larger market, probably with a greater income base in Miami than here in Orlando. And I think our demographic, I think the one unique thing, similar to Miami has it, but we really lean on it. 10% of my audience doesn't live here, right? So any given night you go to the game at Kia Center, 10% of those people are coming from an international audience. They want to see the NBA. They want to experience. It's like if I go to Brazil, I want to go see a soccer match down there or a football match down there. And, I'm not price sensitive, right? If they're playing and I can afford to buy a ticket, I'm going to buy a ticket. That's how our international fans are, right? They're coming to the parks. They're going to Disney.
So you're saying there are less tourists there than here, probably. There are, like, Orlando is a city with 80 million people.
Yeah, they have tourists, but I would say that their tourists tend to be full Latin America, and so the diversity of that fan. Here, they're coming for vacation for a very specific park experience. As you know, the Brazilians spend anywhere from 7 to 10 days in the marketplace. You can only go to Disney Springs so many times, and so they look for that alternative opportunity. And we've been working in the tourism space in Brazil probably for the last 20 years with all the tour operators and travel agents down there to drive interest around that. And so we are an add-on to a traditional trip. They'll book their hotels, they'll book their airlines, they'll buy their park passes. And then as the trip gets closer and our schedule's available, they'll be like, oh, I don't have anything Tuesday night. I see the Magic are playing, and they'll offer buy tickets to come to a game.
Of course. So use the tour operators to offer tickets as
Sure.
an ancillary product.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's very smart. Talking about the NBA and the Magic evolution, how do you see this TikTok generation? How does that impact your viewership or your audience? Because there is a lot of Gen Zs
Sure.
consuming TikTok. Do you use TikTok?
I don't.
Have you used TikTok?
I'm aware of it. My kids and my grandkids use it. I don't.
Do you use any social
Once
media?
I start using it, it's not cool anymore. You know that, right?
Do you use any social media or no?
I do. I'm primarily Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
Certainly as an organization, I keep track of it and what it does for us as a brand. What I would tell you is the sports consumer, especially the United States now, is in bite-sized pieces, right? So you ask someone, hey, did you watch the game last night? They'll say yes. When you ask them, but did you watch the whole game? Typically not. What they're seeing is through social media, posts of highlights, dunks, recaps. We get about probably 10 times more viewers on a 9-minute YouTube clip of a recap of the game that will see the game live, right? That's just the generation of how it is. It actually plays well into the international audience because when we play a game in Germany, they're 6 hours ahead.
Right.
There's not a lot of people watching a game live at 1 o'clock in the morning. They're waking up in breakfast and they're consuming it through social media to see the results and the outcome of either their favorite team or their favorite.
You increase your reach basically and
Absolutely.
your awareness. When you think about international markets for the Magic, what is the top 3 markets you have in reach?
Yeah, so we studied it. So the league opened up international rights to us right before the pandemic. So we analyzed and said a couple of things we looked at. You know, where were there already basketball fans? Where do people play the sport? There's a big difference between consuming it and playing it. And obviously the interest is greater if you actually play the sport or there's interest in playing it. Where was their sponsorship or corporate dollars available to it? And where was the distribution of the television? So we measured those 4 things worldwide. And the 3 markets that performed best for us was Brazil, top market. The Magic are a top 5 team in that marketplace as far as following and interest. I think a lot of that is the connectivity between Brazilians that love to vacation in Orlando. And so that strong connection on that point. It's also one of the fastest growing markets for the NBA. So television distribution is really high. There's 35 NBA stores throughout Brazil. So people love the fan gear and the T-shirts and everything that go along with that. The second market for us was Europe and then specifically Germany. Germany is the fastest growing market for League Pass. So that's your pass that allows you to see all of the games. And again, as we talked about the time difference, oftentimes the way people consume it is the next day. So they're able to see the rerun of that. Huge growth market, smaller market, huge economy, right? So a lot of opportunity there. We have 3 German-born players. So our team performs very much at the top. We're the most watched team in the marketplace, a lot around our players. Italy, Spain, France, all strong markets, but Germany is probably the second target market. And although technically part of the United States, Puerto Rico as a territory, it's treated as an international market by NBA rules. And again, that connectivity between the Hispanic market and the 30% Hispanic population here in Orlando, that connectivity between us and Puerto Rico is really strong.
If you were to build a franchise now, where would be in America? A new franchise? What city?
It's interesting. The league's talking about expansion. Vegas comes up, replacement in Seattle comes up, Nashville comes up. I think those are all strong markets that have young core demographics that are growing, right? There's it's the age of the demographic, the size of the television market, and the growth of those markets. I think that's really drives it. So I think if I was in charge, I'd probably would look at Nashville. It seems to be the most growing population and opportunity.
So you think Nashville, Vegas would be probably the next?
Yeah, I think Nashville, Vegas. There's even talk of Mexico City possibly, right? Just because there's a G League team there that sells 18,000 tickets to their games. So huge, and that's the minor league is the G League, is they have a huge interest in the NBA. I think we're playing, we won't, but the NBA will play, I think their 21st or 22nd game in Mexico City this coming year. They play every year. They play a global game in that marketplace.
You believe that now with the whole, again, Gen Z, the NBA has to reinvent themselves, or the way it's happening? I think last year you heard about the ticket sales was not doing so well.
Yep.
But consumption online, it was growing, right? So
yeah. So a couple things on the ticket sales front. We're very fortunate, again, for all the reasons that we've talked about at our marketplace, that our building stays full. So there's an audience of our season ticket holders. We have a large group audience, so the young kids that come in large groups. And then the tourism market, right? There's an insatiable appetite. If I had more tickets, I could sell more tickets to tourists, right? So we're very fortunate to be able to fill our building from that point of view. I think what you're seeing with the league is the consumption and the streaming audience has changed. So you mentioned the large media deal.
Yep.
Worldwide now, there'll be an Amazon Prime Video distribution model. So every market that has Prime Video will have the opportunity to see NBA games through the distribution. In the United States, you have Prime, you have ESPN, ABC, and you have NBC. So there's going to be like 3 opportunities. But internationally, you have the comparisons to an NBC or an ABC in various different
local
markets.
networks.
So in Germany, there's 4 different television networks that will distribute NBA games, some over the air that make it free and available to the consumer, and some paid streaming services. And
So
that's the direction.
continues to be a media play, right?
Absolutely.
More media, more reach,
And
more
these
fans.
streaming services need guaranteed content that are going to draw viewers in, and it's the hook that brings people into the platform that may otherwise not have a subscription with Prime Video, but if they're a basketball fan, they're going to buy that subscription to watch the games.
Billion-dollar deal that never seen before. So I think that speaks volumes about where the league is going.
Absolutely.
For sure. Let's play a speed round.
Okay.
You can only answer one.
Okay.
You don't have to give context, explain why,
Stanton.
nothing.
Okay, I got you.
Luka or Giannis?
Luka.
Luka or LeBron?
Luka.
Luka or Shaq?
Shaq. Shaq changed the game.
Shaq or Magic Johnson?
Still Shaq.
Shaq or Jordan?
Michael.
Gotta give it that one. He lives in Florida as well. He's in Jupiter, I guess. So
Yeah.
He's nearby.
He's got his golf course down there for
Yeah,
sure.
of course. I bet he comes to Orlando very often. Have you seen him in the field or like
the last time I saw him, he was still playing, right? And that's one of those moments, like we talked about moments you won't forget. I will never forget. Now, at that time, he was playing for Washington. It was kind of at the end of his career. I was fortunate enough to see him with Chicago as well. But like the building stands still when Michael Jordan showed up.
Right. Is there any other player you've seen playing that for you was like, wow, this is
Steph Curry.
Steph Curry is great, right?
It's interesting to watch the fan experience of Steph Curry because he takes the responsibility of knowing that when he comes to a market, there's people that have been waiting for months and have spent a lot of money to come see him. And beyond the game, he puts on a show. He always comes out and does warm-ups. He always interacts with the crowd. He recognizes the responsibility of what the opportunity he's been given, and he pays that back to the fan base for sure.
It's work ethic as well, right? He has he respects the audience, and that speaks volumes about him as a professional. But going back to Orlando, what do you like to do here? What is your go-to place when you're not at the Kia Center or selling $1 billion in tickets? Like what is, or traveling around the world, right?
Yeah, I'm an outdoors person, right? So I prefer to be as athletic as possible. So whether it's jumping for a bike ride or for a run or playing golf, like you're usually going to find my time. I've got a couple of grandkids, so I spend a little bit of time. They're over in Tampa, so I spend time over there with them as well. But that's really probably my go-to is I'm not at the office, I'm outside.
What's your favorite restaurant here in Orlando?
Favorite restaurant? Probably there's a restaurant called Pal Campo, which is a Puerto Rican restaurant. They have one in Lake Mary, but they have several around town. Very good, authentic, not only the food, but the cultural experience. My wife's Hispanic, and so that kind of lends itself to it as well.
She's from Puerto Rico? Or?
She's from Puerto Rico.
Amazing. It makes sense why you guys are playing there now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You built a global brand in a city that, the league overlooked. You built an international empire in ticket sales. Today, Orlando is hosting people from all over the world to watch the NBA, and not only to see Mickey, but to watch the NBA. And, we should be very thankful for you and everything you've done to the city. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks
for having me.
Of course. Game Plan is brought to you by Inter. Nearly 40 million clients around the Americas. You want to know more? Download Inter right now. Stay tuned for more.